Imagine your life was like a ball of wool, soft, colorful, and full of potential, just waiting to be woven into something beautiful. And that's the dream that we have when we imagine having a future family. But what if buried deep inside, there's a knot? One that you didn't put there. One that gets formed through early childhood traumas. Sometimes those traumas are things that we would rather forget. But they don't really disappear, do they? They lie hidden. And the wool, if you think about it, starts pulling together, some of the strands moving around, and then it becomes uneven in the weave. It knots and it's tight. And sometimes it's waiting for the perfect trigger to erupt in your life. Now, for some of us, that eruption comes with the beautiful brutality of birth. Postpartum depression is something that affects us as a society. We kind of think that it's only meant for certain people, but it's a much bigger thing. Now, my personal childhood trauma came from the fact that I was adopted. It was a legacy that was passed on because my adopted mother, she was given up for adoption. And my father suffered brutal physical discipline. And when they decided to adopt me, an abandoned girl, a little child that had been neglected and abandoned, our traumas wove together to form part of our family dynamic, our family identity. Now, when I was growing up, my mother loved horror movies, and so we watched a large amount of them. And one thing that I was quite fascinated by was the story of the transforming monsters. Now, in these stories, you would have normal people, ordinary, charming people with smiles and suits. Sometimes they would be the teacher teaching your children. Sometimes it would be a lecturer. Sometimes it would be an austere businessman sitting in the boardroom. And other times it would be someone smiling, listening to hip-hop on the factory floor. But with the right trigger, they could evolve into a monster. And in the movies, sometimes these characters, when they had remorse, when they had a soul, they would call out to their victim just before they were about to transform and say, "Run!" And the victim would be able to escape. But I ask you this question. What infant can escape a hideous, terrifying monster? When I had my first child, I felt like I was that monster. For a season, I was a single parent living in a tiny one-bedroom cottage inside someone's garden. There was a swimming pool outside. And as a single parent, this baby would not stop crying. Because you see, they're born with a language that we actually don't understand. We look at the glossy magazines. We imagine this beautiful future for our family. But they cry night after night after night, and you cannot get anything to decipher what they actually are crying about. You try all kinds of different things, and ultimately I was exhausted. And then a thought emerged. It was a vision that I can see as clearly as I see all of you. And in this vision, I saw myself taking the baby outside to the swimming pool, holding her under the water. Because in my brain, I believed if I could just get her to stop crying, I could go back to sleep. And then I realized I was the monster. It terrified me and it filled me with shame. Shame so deep that I felt I couldn't reach out to anyone. I couldn't ask for help because I was too hideous inside. And then I realized that the monster was not my enemy. The monster was the voice inside my head that was calling out and saying, we are not okay. Because depression is often hidden behind smiles. And so you might think, what has this got to do with me? I don't want to be a parent. I haven't started out yet. But depression matters. Early childhood traumas like I experienced, research shows that more than doubles your chance of getting depression, any kind of depression. And when we haven't healed from those traumas, we carry them into the future, just like I did, because I didn't have a name for it. Now, the World Health Organization says that economies lose $1 trillion every year in terms of productivity because of depression. So that makes it not just a mommy issue. In fact, if you're thinking it's just a mommy issue, think again. Because when a father holds his baby for the very first time, his testosterone levels drop. And besides getting strong muscles and be fast with testosterone, actually is linked to mental health. So if a man's testosterone levels drop too much, his mental health suffers. But we don't talk about that. We don't realize how it is an entire family ecosystem. And the scary figures are that 50% of people who are struggling with depression will never ask for help and will never get treatment. So how do we solve this problem? Talking isn't just enough. There are corporates out there that have wonderful wellness programs. There are companies that have creches, corporate creches, which really helps with the transition of going back to work. But what we need is we need community, we need to break stigma, and we need to start talking more. When I went to antenatal classes, my teacher brought me a folder. And in the folder were all of the signs of postpartum depression. Now, depression for some people could feel like sadness. It could feel like constantly crying, not wanting to get out of bed. It's not the baby blues. The baby blues only last for 2 weeks. That's purely hormonal. This is something deeper. And it affects adoptive parents. It affects same-gender parents. It affects any kind of parent. You do not have to be the birthing parent to have postpartum depression. Sometimes depression can manifest as anger or even rage, which is what I felt when I was having those intrusive thoughts. But intrusive thoughts are not an indication of your character. They are a symptom, and a symptom that must be treated. So corporates put together your programs, but get someone to go and stand in front of a person. Say, here is a file, physical paper, not something you have to Google or look at your phone and find out about, physical paper. And say, I know this is a real issue. If you ever feel this way, reach out. That's what I did. Because when you are willing to reach out, when you are willing to tame that monster, you can start creating something very different. When we weave together a completely different story, we start building not just one stronger family, many stronger families, many stronger workforces, and many stronger nations. Because ultimately, we want that colorful wool, but we want it to be filled with hope.